Just a few housekeeping notes. As I say, we are recording, but it'll only be the panelists who will appear on the screen, so don't worry about that. Later on, Anna's going to be leading us in an exercise where you will need a paper and a pen or pencil, possibly 2 colours, that would be best, but only 2 colours, so hopefully it won't be too hard to find. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Anna, who's going to start us off with a small mindfulness practice.
Great. Well, lovely to be with you this afternoon. Mindfulness can be really useful and help us to take notice of how we're doing, particularly if we're activists and we're very busy. To notice how our body is doing can be useful. A tightness in the chest when we're worried, butterflies in the stomach with anticipation, or laughter when we're joyful are all examples of where our emotions show themselves in our body. So today we're going to do a body scan, and this has been a really useful discipline for me at various times. So if you start by finding a comfortable seated position with a straight back, maybe roll your shoulders and close your eyes if you're comfortable to. So start by bringing the attention to your breath. Notice the flow of your breath coming in and out. Take the attention to the top of your head. Notice how it feels. Notice any sensations and feel it relaxing. Now move the attention to your face. Unclench your jaw. Smooth out your forehead. Those are areas where we often carry some tension. And now to your neck and shoulders. Roll your shoulders once if you feel they need it, and then let them settle. Now, move the attention slowly down your arms. Notice any tingling or any other sensations. Down into your hands and fingers. Are they in a relaxed position, or could you move them to make them more comfortable? And now your chest and stomach. Notice them filling with air and then emptying as your breath flows in and out. Your hips, upper legs, lower legs, and then all the way down to your feet. Are they warm enough? Can you feel any tingling? Notice where they're touching your slippers or your shoes. And now we've done a full scan of the body. I invite you to think about the next 40 minutes and maybe set an intention for yourself. It could be to learn one new thing. It could be to be fully present in the room. It could be to be kind to yourself in your thinking. Not thinking I should be doing more, I could be doing more, but accepting yourself and all of the wonderful things that you bring through all that you do. And now start to notice the sounds around you, inside the room and outside the room. And bring the attention back to your breath. Notice it in and out. And as we come to the end, just start to wiggle your fingers and toes to get a little bit of movement back in. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Anna. In preparation for this webinar, we've approached several colleagues and friends who we know have been involved in activism and campaigning over several years, for some quite a long stretch of years. And we're going to share some of their contributions as top tips videos. And we're going to start with a video from one of our colleagues, Jasmine Davidson, who works in the Northwest region.
I would like to share a couple of points which helped me to be active and kept me going. Doing things that I love doing. I love cooking, so I have tried different dishes which I enjoyed, but also my family enjoyed eating that too. And secondly, being connected in different ways. Though we are not able to meet together, but we did so many activities via Zoom. So pass on the brush challenge with my friends is something we as a group of ladies did. And be active. Personally, I do outdoor walking every day, at least for an hour. To make it interesting, we have a group of friends created a walking challenge that kept us going. So being positive, doing what you love doing, and being active and being connected with your friends and families kept me going.
As well as starting with Anna's really excellent mindfulness exercise that helped us to settle into the webinar and feel calm and relaxed and set an intention for the next 40 minutes together, we wanted to start on a positive note as well. So one of the ways in which we can look after ourselves is to remind ourselves that what we do does make a difference. It helps us to celebrate our achievements, both big and small. So the singer Paloma Faith said this, and Phoebe's going to share a link to the article in which she said this in the chat so that people can read even further if they want. So Paloma Faith said this: "If there was a crisis and a plea for money tomorrow and everyone in London alone, population 9 million, donated 50p, then we would raise £4.5 million instantly. Imagine if that was the whole country. Kindness is the same. If we all donated a few kind gestures a day and let a few more petty things slide, the world would be better. It can be big or small. No contribution is too little. And no gestures too big. And by all means, allow yourself to enjoy it. Donate your ear, your time, your food, and even your money if you want. And then after you have, feel good about it. Why not? Kindness comes in many forms, and you can spend as much of it as you like without breaking the bank." So as a way of starting our time together on a really positive note, I'd like you to share in chat, if you feel comfortable, some of the things, big and small, that you have done that makes the world a better place. This is your time to celebrate the difference you make just by being a kind and a caring person. It's your time to boast a little if you like, but really it's a celebration of what kindness can achieve when it's pulled together and lots of people do good. So what 50p or more or less worth of kindness have you done in the last week? I want you to share some of those in chat now. Set us off, Phoebe. Tell us what you've been doing.
This week, oh gosh, what have I done this week that's been kind? I've held the door open for people. That's always felt nice. And I was out this morning in London and I saw the lady with a pram and she needed to get up the steps from the tube. So I helped her carry the pram. So hopefully that made her day a little bit nicer.
Fantastic. Thank you, Phoebe. We've had Anna share as well that she's hosted some friends at her flat, paid for friends' lunches at school when they forgot. That's a fantastic suggestion and a really good bit of kindness. So thank you. Any other thoughts? Any other suggestions? Oh, loads coming in. I've made sure a friend is included. I walked a friend's dog this morning when she was in a meeting. That's a lovely one. Spent a couple of hours visiting with an elderly neighbour. These are all fantastic. Thank you so much. I just want you to take a moment and feel free to continue sharing, because it's really good, I think, to build up a picture of just what we can achieve when we're all kind of offering our 50p's worth of kindness to the world. Just take a moment to think of the difference that you and the others have made just by showing up and by trying. If everyone just stopped spending their 50p's worth of kindness tomorrow, then the world would be so much worse off. So you make a difference, and it's really important to remember that. So why is it that our first ever Agents of Change webinar is on the subject of wellbeing and activism? As activists, we want what's best for other people, and we have to want that for ourselves as well. The Bible is full of examples that tell us that God wants us to look after ourselves as well as others, from the command to take a day of rest once a week, which we call the Sabbath, to the fact that even Jesus surrounded himself with friends. He didn't try to do things alone. He surrounded himself with his disciples and lots of friends. And when he felt overwhelmed, he took time to step away, to find some time to himself and to pray and to meditate and to spend time with God. So even Jesus practiced self-care. When it comes to making the world a better place, people, so you, are the best resource that we have. And so we need to ensure that you're looking after that resource. It's important we learn about ourselves. So what gives us energy and what can take that energy away and make us feel tired. And that's where my talking about the stress bucket comes in, something that I talk about quite often. We can think about our ability to take on stress as a bucket. And if our bucket gets too full, then it can overflow. And stress can be a really good thing. The stress of the alarm going off in the morning is what gets me out of bed and makes me kind of get on with the day and be a useful person. I was in an event recently where somebody compared exercise to stress on our muscles. And so stress for our brain sometimes can make our brain work better, just as exercise can make our muscles work better. It can push us to do things. It can push us to try to be activists and make change in the world. But too much stress, too much exercise, we can injure our muscles or we can injure our brain. And so we need to be careful that our bucket, our ability to take on stress, doesn't get too full and doesn't take on too much stress. And there are lots of ways in which we can empty that bucket. So we can empty our stress buckets by doing things that make us feel energized and calm and more at peace with the world. So I just wanted you to take a couple of moments again, and again, please feel free to share in chat, just some thoughts of what things fill up your stress bucket and what things help you to empty your stress bucket out. So for me, planning this webinar today, perhaps filled my stress bucket up a little bit. So I made sure I took time at lunchtime and went out for a walk in the sunshine, and then I spent half an hour doing my jigsaw, and that helped me to empty out my stress bucket. As I say, only share what you're comfortable sharing in chat, but what perhaps might fill up your stress bucket on a day-to-day basis, and what helps you to empty your stress bucket. Your email inbox, yeah, I get a little bit stressed if my unread messages go above 20. Thanks, Anna. That's a really good suggestion. Any other thoughts on what your stress buckets might be filling up with? For some people, it could be things like doing homework, managing relationships with your friends and your brothers and sisters, preaching tomorrow, yeah, too much work, doing presentations and last minute stuff, yeah, that can definitely fill our stress buckets up. What about the stuff that helps you to empty your stress bucket? What do you do? What do you make time for that helps you to feel a bit more relaxed and calm and at peace with the world? Oh, yeah, feeling hassled and rushed. Yeah, that can definitely fill your stress bucket up. Emptying, meditation, music and family helps somebody to empty their stress bucket, going for a run, going for a walk. Sitting in the sunshine, certainly today, that's a really good thing to do. Phoebe's celebrating the running. She likes running too. I do not, but that's fine. Paddling in the sea, that's a really nice one for those that can get out there. Talking to your mum, that's a really great way. Talking to other people, reaching out and connecting, as Jasmine's already reminded us. Getting into nature, that's a great way to empty our stress buckets. Baking and eating what I've made. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of comfort cooking during lockdown and perhaps a little bit too much of comfort eating as a result of that. So thank you so much. Please keep those suggestions coming in, and we're going to share another video now. This is from two people who are involved in development work or climate activism, and so the tips they're going to be sharing are a little bit climate focused. So let's have a look at what Tim and James have to say.
Hello, I'm Tim from All We Can, and I suppose my top tip for well-being in a world of activism is simply to stay connected with the outdoors, with the earth, with real plants and wildlife. Our work at All We Can is about people and about helping people escape poverty, but often it's also about the climate and the world and the impact that climate change is having on so many people. So it helps me when I'm feeling run down or tired just to spend some time outside in the big open air, breathing the free air, connecting with plants and with the soil. That seems to help to connect me to God and to all the things that give me energy to keep going and keep wanting a better, fairer, safer, more just world. God bless you.
Campaigning for the climate is difficult, but you are never alone. God is always with you because they care about their world and they want to see it restored. And there are many other people around the world of all ages, genders and nations who believe in climate justice too. If we work together, we can achieve great things.
So now we are going to do an exercise where you need that pen and paper that Lynn mentioned before. And I'm just going to share screen to give a little example of what we're asking you to do. Right, so what I want you to do is draw 3 circles. They don't have to be neat, so please don't worry if they're not. The inner circle represents you, your family and your close friends. The next circle out is your church, your school, your community, any area where you connect with a probably local, it could be online though, group of people, and then your relationship with the world, so you as a global citizen. I'll just give you a moment to do that. And then with each circle, we're going to ask you, where can you make a difference and where do you make a difference? So celebrating some of those successes, but maybe thinking of other things that you could do that could be useful, ideas as well as celebrations. So in that inner circle, how do you make a difference to yourself and your family and your close friends? I'll come up with a few examples just to give you some ideas. So it could be making changes at home, recycling, thinking about the energy provider, asking your parents or what kind of car you drive, thinking about that, and where you shop. It could be starting conversations about being inclusive with those close to you, and making sure that you're using inclusive language within those conversations. Could be thinking about the power of money and us as consumers, things that we eat, the things that we buy, and the way that we use technology. Watching things in standard definition, for example, is quite a small thing, but something that can make a difference. And not letting YouTube just run and run and run, or Netflix, thinking about how that is for yourself, but also what that means on a wider context of using up energy for the environment. And then how can you make a difference in your community? Oh, and I should have said you can write or draw these, whatever works for you, however you present things, however your mind works. How can you make a difference in your community? Could you encourage your church to be an eco-church, or ask to talk about issues of climate change more regularly, or anti-racism, or global poverty? Could you have a group at your school or in your church? And could you set a zero carbon target, or declare a climate emergency as an organisation? Could you be the voice that raises that? It could be small things. We were talking about kindness before, smiling at people, inviting people to sit with you at lunch, paying for people's lunch if they forget their money. Kindness can change the world, so celebrating that is always good. Could it be about the language that you use within these spaces, and making sure that it's inclusive and loving in all that we say? And then in your outer circle, how can you make a difference globally? All of those actions so far do make a difference globally, because obviously what we do has a knock-on effect, but also getting involved in wider campaigns, things like Black Lives Matter, Friends of the Earth, the school strikes, British Youth Council, coming along to events like this, Agents of Change events, Social Justice for All. Join your voices with thousands of others to ask for change. Or you could meet your MP or your local councillor to share the things that are really important to you. It could be about educating yourself, reading, reading books and articles, watching films and documentaries, increasing your understanding. Educating ourselves about these wider issues is definitely an important element of activism. But all of these things can be tiring, and often these can be things that go into the stress bucket rather than, so they can fill it up, and we can put pressure on ourselves to feel that we're not good enough and we're not doing enough. But I guess what I want to say to you is that isn't true. You are good enough. And if we're thinking about the stress bucket, we have to think about the ways that we empty that stress bucket as well. Some of those things that Lynn mentioned earlier, some of the things that you put in the chat. So we're going to start again from the middle circle. And where can you support yourself, and where can you support others? So again, writing or drawing. This is where you can change colour if you want to, and if you have a different colour. So personal prayer or meditation may be in that inner circle. Exercise, running for quite a few people here. Sharing how you're feeling with those close to you can be really important. Times of rest, and spending half an hour doing something that makes you happy. That could be baking or doing your nails. For me, I'm very keen on painting my nails. And we have this idea that we have 5 pieces of fruit and veg a day, but what about 5 things that are good for our mental health each day? Talking to friends and close family if we are struggling, but also being open to listening to them and supporting them in the times when they're finding things difficult or things are feeling overwhelming, as they often can, because activists are people who care about the world and believe the world can be better, but sometimes that's a heavy load to bear. Now we go on to the next one out, so the community one. You can get formal forms of support from church pastoral teams, school pastoral teams, your youth leaders and friends. It helps to talk, building on community and not bottling things up. Join with others, don't do it alone, as was mentioned before. Spending time with people in nature can be really powerful, as Tim shared, and the connection to nature can be a powerful tonic. And being understanding if people need to take time out, that's how we can support others. So you might be relying on somebody to help you with your campaigning or with bringing goodness into the world, but they might need to take a break. And we must treat people as we would like to be treated. So make sure that we are understanding and caring for those people too. And then in the outer circle, thinking about globally, everything that we've talked about again has an wider impact. But I think there's something about being aware of what we are watching and notice how we're feeling, thinking about that body scan. How is this making me feel? How am I responding emotionally to this? I know that for me, regularly, I have to be quite careful what I watch about climate change, because it can really, I can get quite upset about it. You can join up with wider campaigns and hear stories from around the world, because when we connect globally, we can make a real difference. And the Climate Justice for All campaign is a really good example of that, where people across the globe are coming together, connecting, sharing their stories and listening to others and creating those spaces. And the good news stories, sharing and celebrating. Seek them out and tell stories that will encourage others as well, so we can be the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you. Just stop sharing.
Thanks, Anna. We have another video now for you from 2 Rachels, actually, and this is sharing a little bit around top tips about campaigning and how you can actually use your activism as a form of self-care as well. So hope you enjoy these.
My top tip is to feel that you're never alone. Sometimes you need encouragement from another person, but sometimes you can't beat being part of a huge crowd. Marching along the street, our banners held high, all chanting and singing together for justice. If you've never been part of a march or a demonstration, give it a go. Go with your friends and your family, make your own banners. It's energising to be part of something that is so much bigger, and be part of a real witness for change.
Hi, my name is Rachel and I'm a 3Generate social justice youth rep. So, what keeps me going when I'm campaigning? Well, when people make demeaning comments or I experience multiple microaggressions, my frustration builds. And I find that by doing activism or small campaigns, it enables me to facilitate change, and this helps to empower me. Often these are small things like challenging people about if they know what language they're using, what that really means.
We're going to hear from Rachel a little bit more in a moment, because one of the things we wanted to talk about in this session is the fact that self-care becomes really important when we feel the need to challenge something that directly affects us, especially if we're part of a minority group or a group that is marginalised in any way. Having to regularly explain to others why an issue is important or deeply personal can make us feel tired, it can make us feel alone, or it can make us feel sad. So I'm really pleased that Rachel, who has just introduced herself as one of our social justice youth reps, Rachel is also a disabled person who regularly campaigns and is really passionate about raising awareness around disability and inclusion. So she's going to share a little story with us just to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So if you could join us, Rachel, that'd be great. And thank you so much for doing that.
Hello, everyone. You get to see me live this time. So I'm going to use taxis as my example today. And this has partly been inspired by the news article that came out on the news on Thursday about the experience by the actress Ruth Mandley. So if we look at a wider campaign perspective of taxis, it looks quite positive. You know, for example, all black cabs in Manchester where I live are wheelchair accessible. Now, I can almost hear you guys thinking, that's great. But actually, for me and for other disabled people, it isn't that simple. So let us look at a closer perspective. I read in this article that taxi drivers are expected to provide assistance free of charge. Now, you see, often when I get a taxi, the drivers keep the meter running while they're providing me with assistance. So it might only be like 50p extra, but all those 50p's add up over time. So while these drivers might feel they've earned it, what they're actually insinuating is that I'm personally the burden and I'm the problem. And it's this very personal nature of campaigning that non-disabled people are able to take a break from. But for me and for other disabled people, like other minorities perhaps, it's our reality and similar things can happen on a daily basis. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much for agreeing to share with us some of your personal experience, Rachel. It's really, really appreciated. And just some top tips, because that's the theme of the day, for looking after yourself if it is an issue that directly affects you or is deeply personal to you. So the first tip is don't feel that you always have to be the teacher during conversations about an issue that's really important to you or directly affects you. The second, if you find you're in a conversation that feels too overwhelming, you've got every right to ask for the conversation subject to be changed, to request that you don't take part in that conversation and refuse to take part if it comes down to it, or just to walk away and leave the conversation. Don't feel you've got to stay in that space. If you're having lots of conversations and you find that this is happening regularly where you're having conversations about something that directly impacts you, then perhaps look to create a specific time and place where those conversations can take place with a large group of people. So for instance, you could ask a teacher or a youth leader to run a session or a lesson on that particular subject. So it's not, the onus isn't on you to educate your friends around a particular subject. If you're really tired and particularly about certain subjects and having conversations about particular issues, then try and take a break from the places where those conversations take place. So that might mean thinking a bit more carefully about what you watch on the television, particularly the news. what films you watch, and what social media and YouTube videos you engage with. Remember those self-care activities we've talked about. Practice self-care, particularly when you're being directly impacted. And try and read and watch stories where people have been empowered and have achieved, as that's a really important way to retain a sense of hope. And just remember as well that even if you're not directly impacted, then we can be really good allies to our friends and our schoolmates by speaking up when we hear people using language that isn't inclusive, or saying things or expressing opinions that perhaps we would like to challenge. We've been in some training sessions recently as a children, youth and family team where we were told to feel the ouch and then educate. So if something makes you wince, then look for a safe place where you can politely challenge something that somebody said. And we've just had somebody share in chat as well. It can be really frustrating to explain something important or personal to someone. Very much so, very much agree. So do remember that you need to look after yourself in those conversations. And, you know, if it feels like you're not winning that time or you're too tired to have that conversation, then just disengage, walk away and try again another day. I hope that Anna has queued up our last top tips video from one of our friends, Ian.
Hello everyone, it's great to be able to be part of this session with you. I'm Ian Rutherford. I'm the City Centre Minister at Methodist Central Hall, Manchester, which is a hub for social justice, mission and service at the heart of the city, with a heart for the city. I've always been an activist, and I'm really pleased to be able to share with you today some of the things that I've learnt. I'm currently on the national leadership team of Citizens UK and part of the local chapter, so engaged in some really interesting actions at the moment. But how do we keep ourselves resourced, and how do we look after ourselves within our activism? So I've got 4 things to say to you. The first is, don't be a lone ranger. Activism is a collective endeavour. So take the support and the energy of the team around you and share the burden of responsibility. Let others take the strain at times. The second thing is to be prepared for disappointment. There will be setbacks. There will be a hard slog for some of the things that you're engaged with, but keep going. Celebrate the wins. Remember the life stories of the people that have got different lives now because of the actions in which you've been involved. The third thing is to balance your activism with contemplation. Jesus is our model here. He took himself away to quiet places to pray, to recharge, to reconnect. And so those periods of devotion and renewal can bring clarity and quality to our actions. And then the fourth thing is to champion rest as resistance. Sabbath is a necessity, not a luxury. To sustain our activism in times of deep lament and loss, as we are in now, we must sustain ourselves in order to sustain others. We need balance and we need self-care in our caring for our communities. So strength to you and solidarity.
I love that idea of rest as resistance. I was recently in a session where people were talking about the fact that we live in a world that's driven by capitalism and consumerism, and rest is not seen as something, it's seen as a luxury, not an essential thing. And so I love that idea that rest can be an act of resistance in itself. We're just going to share a little bit now about who we are as Christians, because as activists who are also Christians, part of our ability to carry on when the going gets tough has to be founded in our hope and our trust in God. We don't always think of hope as an active thing, as a doing thing, but it is something that we can practice, and it can be something that can be proactive and almost kind of a fighting action in itself, just choosing to hope. Justice is completely on God's heart. So if you're working for justice, then you can be sure that you're sitting right at the heart of God. So how do we hold on to hope? I think this is by holding on to who God is, what God promises to us. Thinking about times when you've felt God with you, perhaps, and reminding yourself of what that felt like. Thinking about Bible passages or perhaps hymns or choruses that remind you of who God is and who his character is, what he's promised to do. If you've got any thoughts on that, then please do share them in chat. If there are Bible passages that you kind of go back to time and time again, then please do share them. Ever since I was little, I've always sung the chorus, "Be bold, be strong" to myself whenever I'm going into a situation where I'm scared, just as a way of reminding myself that God is with me. But there are Bible verses as well that I kind of return to time and time again, just to remind me of who God is and what God's promised. It's really important that we do that, practicing holding on to who God is when things are going well, when things are easy. Because it's really hard to start doing that in the middle of the fight. If things are going difficult, that's really bad English. If things are going well, then it's really easy to practice holding on to who God is. If things are going wrong, or if we're struggling, then the negative voices and the doubt can start to creep in. So we need to practice holding on to who God is when things are good. So try to build in time to read your Bible. Talk to other Christians and share stories of who God is. I love Psalm 121 as well. Thank you, Rachel. That's one of my favourites. I've got it in a framed print in my hallway. So yeah, practice reading your Bible, talk to other Christians, share stories of who God is and when God's kind of fulfilled promises and giving reason for hope. And also spend time sitting in the quiet with God. I'm going to read some sections of the story of Ezekiel and the Valley of the Dry Bones. It's a bit of an odd story from the Old Testament about an Old Testament prophet. It could probably be best understood as a dream or a vision. And if you want to read the full story, then it's in Ezekiel 37, 1-14, but this is just some highlighted sections. God's Spirit took me up and set me down in the middle of an open plain strewn with bones. He led me around and among them, a lot of bones. There were bones all over the plain, dry bones bleached by the sun. He said to me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" I said, "Master God, only you know that." He said to me, "Prophesy over these bones. Dry bones, listen to the message of God." God, the Master, told the dry bones, "Watch this. I'm bringing the breath of life to you, and you'll come to life. I'll attach sinews to you, put meat on your bones, cover you with skin, and breathe life into you. You'll come alive, and you'll realize that I am God." I prophesied just as I'd been commanded. As I prophesied, there was a sound and, oh, rustling. The bones moved and came together, bone to bone. I kept watching. Sinews formed, then muscles on the bones, then skin stretched over them, but they had no breath in them. He said to me, "Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of Man. Tell the breath, God the Master says, come from the four winds. Come, breath, breathe on these slain bodies, breathe life." So I prophesied just as he commanded me. The breath entered them, and they came alive. They stood upon their feet, a huge army. As I say, that's a bit of an odd story, and it's best understood as a dream or a vision, but I just wanted to make a few points off the back of that story. So God gives Ezekiel something to do. God wants to work in partnership with us when it comes to working for justice. God gives Ezekiel instructions and words to say. And if God calls us to do something, and if we spend time listening to God, then he will lead us and tell us what is ours to do. And it's important to hear that because it's not all ours to do. So knowing what our role is really important. You can almost feel God's excitement as Ezekiel obeys God's instructions and things start to happen. And then another point, in the end, the change is from dry bones to a vast army. It's not just a group of shuffling zombies that's created, which shows us that if we trust God, if we follow God's lead, then the final result will be awesome. It will be something that is beyond our imagining. And lastly, God takes Ezekiel step by step. He doesn't just say, declare an army. He gives Ezekiel as much as Ezekiel can cope with in each moment. So if we're eating a pizza, it's important to eat that pizza slice by slice. And it's the same when it comes to following what God wants us to do, taking it a step at a time and listening for that next step. That's bringing us now towards the end of the webinar. I just want to give a few kind of signposts to a few things that people might be interested in following up on afterwards. As I say, this is our first Agents of Change webinar. We possibly could have chose a better day because I think we're up against the sunshine today, but thank you for those who have come and participated. We've created a short survey just because we'd really love to hear how people found it and what we could do better next time or what we should do the same. And Phoebe's put a link to that survey in the chat. So if you could click on that and just give us 2 minutes of your time to tell us how you found today's event, that would be really helpful. Phoebe, who has been hosting our chat, our youth president, has launched her God's World, Our Home resource this week, which is a 6-session plan for youth groups to follow to explore the subject of climate justice. So we'd really encourage you to have a look at that resource, and also Phoebe will be seeking some feedback on how people find that and how we can improve it. If you're an agent of change or you're part of a youth group who's trying to make a difference, then we'd love to hear your stories so we can share those with others and encourage them. So please, if that is you, then please do get a parent or a leader to email me. And Phoebe has just posted my email address in chat, but it's normanl@methodistchurch.org.uk. And finally, please do check out the Agents of Change playlist on our 3Generate TV YouTube channel. That's where we'll be putting the recording of this webinar once we've kind of edited it and put it all together. But there's also some really great content already on there, so please do have a look. That's all my signposting. I'm going to hand over to Anna, who's just going to lead us in a closing prayer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you all. It's been lovely to be with you. And to close, I invite you to look at the 3 circles diagram and just consider that and lift all of that up to God, knowing that we are blessed in our actions for bringing about justice and our actions of caring for ourselves. I'm going to read something from Green Christian, where they think about the revolutionary act of hope. Friends, I want to invite you to lean into that act of revolution today, this week, this coming month. When we plant things in the earth, we declare that, yes, tomorrow will come. We bury those seeds in the dirt, trusting that they will grow. Invisible, we are declaring, yes, unseen things will grow in secret until they're ready to burst forth. So I invite you to join in the rebelliousness of hope, to plant seeds and water those empty pots with a little bit of water each day, remembering the rebelliousness of hope, the unseen things of the kingdom of peace, the kingdom of God, waiting to burst forth. God, I am planting and nurturing these seeds as I wrestle with hope and fear. Let me find ways to be present to what you are doing today, here, now. Help me to also have an open heart to what you are to do tomorrow. This is my revolutionary act of defiance against fear. Hear my heart. Amen. Thank you all.